Today I'm going to talk about the times when we find ourselves feeling powerless and frustrated with the outcome of a situation. I'll be offering a way to change this so that you can remain empowered and calm instead of feeling as though you've just been hijacked by the circumstances. As I tell my clients, there's good news and bad news, and it's the same news. You are the one causing your negative experience, and you're the only one needed to change it. The day-to-day circumstances that we encounter constantly provide us with an opportunity to respond as powerless or powerful. A powerless response is what we call a victim response, responding like a victim. Because by definition, a victim truly is powerless. When someone is a victim, they truly have no choice in that moment. And it's important to be respectful of the fact that these situations do exist. But this is not what defines most of our day-to-day lives, and not what I'm addressing here. I'm going to offer you a way to recognize when you're behaving from the belief that you are a victim, and how to successfully change this. First, let's look at a few examples of what we call a victim response: personalizing what others do, making it all about you even though it's not, wishing it weren't happening, even though it is, complaining but not taking meaningful action, avoiding, which creates stress and negativity but nothing more, blaming or shaming, which means that you don't choose to look at what your part in a dynamic is, which is how we make change, passive aggression, not claiming your anger in a clean, mature way, and lacking in curiosity about what you could do differently, which is how we access our power to make a new choice. All of these reactions are a form of resistance. This means we're not accessing our capacity to consciously choose our response. Let's start with learning about how this happens, because learning this will support you in interrupting the pattern and choosing differently. In your handout, you have a graphic called the Ladder of Inference. This was developed by Chris Argyris. He was affiliated with both Harvard and MIT, and considered by most to be one of the most renowned experts in organizational behavior and the psychology of how we interact. I'm going to take you through the model, and I'll plug in an example as we go. What this ladder demonstrates is the thought process that takes place when we interact with other people. We all have an internal system that filters what we take in through our senses. We are always bringing certain experiences into the foreground and putting others into the background, or we become overwhelmed. So at the first rung, you'll see, I observe and take in what's occurring. A simple everyday example would be that you sent an important email to someone and they haven't responded. Now you move up to the second rung. I filter and select some aspect of this occurrence and become focused on that as the foreground experience. Example, you become very focused on the lack of reply. We now move up to the third rung. I make an assumption and I add my own meaning to the data. Remember the data? Example, you become focused on what the lack of reply might mean. You do this with no information, so you're now wasting your energy on unfounded thoughts. You might decide the person is annoyed with you or upset, doesn't think your email is worth prioritizing. Maybe they don't like you or are avoiding you. At this point, I want to give you a little information about what's actually happening in the brain. We have mechanisms called autoappraisers. They were discovered by a researcher named Paul Ekman. When we're having an experience that's even slightly reminiscent of something that happened in our history, such as in our childhood, these brain cells activate. When they activate, it's like our nervous system is plugging us directly back into our history, to the old experience, and we do become hijacked by the old emotional responses we had way back then. We do have the ability to interrupt this pattern in our brain, and we do it by doing what we're doing here. We understand and bring consciousness to it in order to change it. Let's get back to the ladder. So now we're up on the fourth rung. The autoappraisers are active, and you draw a conclusion, although you have no facts, because these are activating from your past. You believe there's some kind of a problem or issue between the two of you, although the other person, of course, has no idea. Your assumptions from the previous rung become your conclusion. Now we move to the fifth rung. How this filter system now works is that it will validate and update your belief system. But the key word here is it's a belief system that you go through life with. It's not necessarily what's true. So the example could be that you conclude that you and this person now have an issue between you. Until we become conscious of interrupting this way of processing information, we unconsciously scan the landscape of our day-to-day life, with our minds looking to validate any situation as proof of our beliefs. This is how we operate every day, unless we become aware of it. Someone who grew up with different messages might not give a second thought to not hearing back from somebody else. However, they could zoom right up the ladder with a different situation. I'm sure you've wondered why certain things drive someone else crazy that don't bother you at all, or why someone isn't sharing how upset you feel about something that's happened. Now we're up at the top of the ladder. And although the only actual data here is a time lapse in an email response, from here we always take action based on the interpretation of the data. So when you see the person, you may be slightly unfriendly now, a little anxious or agitated. You might even avoid them or become passive-aggressive and not reply to them. When we're at the top of the ladder, we are no longer grounded. How can we really be powerful if we're not actually dealing with what's true? Remember the list of victim traits? These are the behaviors that emerge at the top of the ladder. They're supporting an old belief that we're powerless, like when we were children. And when we were children, we didn't have the same power as an adult. There really was a power differential. But the good news is you're not a child any longer. You do have the power to choose. So what's an empowered choice look like? It starts with climbing down the ladder, back to steady ground. Remember the 4 questions? We allow and accept what's happening. Numbers 1 and 2. An unreturned email. This is the data. It's not personal. Whatever's happening belongs to the other person. So from this non-personal place, you take action that remains focused on the task. You become compassionate. Question 3. You remember, there isn't any perfection. This is a human interaction. This is when we want to remember to become curious. Can I remain open to what I might not know about this situation? And this leads to a presence-based response. Question 4. Okay, what do I just want to do right now? And you make a conscious choice. Maybe you follow up, request a confirmation, ask a clarifying question, see if someone else could be contacted. Maybe you let it go. When you come down the ladder, you become present in the here and now. Then you decide what you want, cleanly, directly, like a grown-up. You create the outcome you want or need. This is the power of choice you access when you understand you're not a victim of your circumstances. It's not true that you have no choices. The choice that is constantly available to you is how you want to think about this situation, from a destabilized position at the top of the ladder or with yourself solidly on the ground. Children are guided and reactive based on their personal likes and dislikes. When we choose to no longer filter our experiences through our personal preferences, they release the hold they have on us. You may prefer someone replies to your email immediately, but letting go of that preference keeps you from going up the ladder. When we go up, it's our undoing, the way kids become undone when they don't get their way. So this is the difference between a grown-up and a child. Remember my client? She was so resentful that she was being asked to do these extra projects, but she changed her situation when she came down off her ladder, out of her head and her history. And she realized, oh, there's a new way to look at this and respond. Any other choice is to decide you don't have the ability to shift your thinking. And that's just not true. As Wayne Dyer says, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So being empowered means being an adult. Understanding we don't have control over a lot of events. We don't always get what we want. Kids respond with resistance. Grown-ups respond with acknowledgement, acceptance of what is, and moving forward with the best next choice. I work with clients every day who deal with unwanted situations. When they climb down off the ladder and stand on the ground, they become present. It calmly brings the truth and reality of the situation into view. Wishful thinking is released. Clarity about the best next step is what shows up. I'll just conclude by saying, become familiar with what kind of triggers take you up the ladder. Practice the tools you've learned. This will free you. It'll give you a clear, clean view of your options. It's not just the hallmark of being an adult. It's a process that allows you to enjoy the power that comes with being a grown-up.